Coming up on Arirang News, President Moon Jae-in announces a massive project to help small and medium-sized businesses. They'll get around $18 billion in support this year, plus thousands of smart factories to improve their productivity. China hits back at the U.S. in their trade war, announcing tariffs of 25% on some $60 billion in American goods. The news prompts a sell-off on Wall Street and the worst day this year for the Dow. And President Moon urges bipartisan support in the National Assembly for the government's extra budget bill, a task he calls urgent. And he proposes a meeting of the five parties, including the opposition, at the Blue House. It's 4 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to our afternoon newscast. I'm Devin Whiting. President Moon Jae-in has ordered his cabinet to speed up their work to boost the South Korean economy. In Tuesday's cabinet meeting, the president called on his ministers to do more to reform the economy to ensure better outcomes, and again asked for bipartisan support from the National Assembly. Here's the president.
무엇보다 정부가 제출한 추경의 신속한 처리를 위한 논의가 시급합니다. 추경은 미세먼지와 재난 예방과 함께 대외 경제의 여건 변화에 대응하고 국내 실물 경제와 내수 진작을 위해 긴요합니다. 국민의 삶에 직접적인 영향을 주는 민생 예산입니다.
President Moon called for a meeting with the leaders of the five rival political parties, saying they need to reach a compromise over contentious issues like the provision of food aid to North Korea and economy-related matters. He said they can discuss the most pressing issues as long as the main opposition Liberty Korea Party agrees, sending a direct message to the only party that is strongly opposed to such a meeting. UNESCO's evaluation agency has recommended adding South Korea's traditional Confucian academies to its heritage list. Back during the Joseon Dynasty, these academies were used for the education of Korean young people. Our Kan Hyung-woo tells us more.
9 traditional Confucian academies in South Korea, called Seoul in Korean, are one step closer to being added to the UNESCO World Heritage list. According to Korea's Cultural Heritage Administration on Tuesday, UNESCO's evaluation agency, the International Council on Monuments and Sites, recommended that the scholarly sites are added to the list. Seoul are private Confucian academies established during Korea's Joseon Dynasty to honor renowned scholars and educate young people. 9 sites have been recommended for the list, including Sosu Seoul in Yeongju and Dosan and Pyeongsan Seowons in Andong. The Cultural Heritage Administration had previously applied for the Seowons to be added to the World Heritage list back in 2016, but it withdrew its bid after being deferred by the International Council on Monuments and Sites. Seeking consultations with the evaluation agency, the Cultural Heritage Administration reapplied in early 2018. After almost a year and a half of evaluation, the Seowons have been finally recognized for their outstanding universal value. The final decision will be made at the World Heritage Committee meeting in Azerbaijan, which will be held from June 30th through July 10th. If successful, the Seowons will become South Korea's 14th item on the World Heritage list. Kan Hyung-woo, Arirang News.
Acting U.S. Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan says Washington's diplomatic approach to North Korea has not changed despite the regime's recent firing of short-range missiles. Shanahan was speaking to Fox News on Monday in an interview, explaining the Trump administration's goal of denuclearization. But he also said his job is to make sure the U.S. is prepared in the event diplomacy fails, saying that's his focus with the military. 4 oil tankers have reportedly been attacked near the UAE in acts of sabotage, 2 of them said to be from Saudi Arabia, an enemy of Iran. This comes amid military tension between Iran and the U.S. over vital oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. The Associated Press quotes the Saudi energy minister as saying the oil tankers were significantly damaged. There were no casualties or spills, but it could still affect the shipment's delivery. World oil prices rose on the news, including those of Brent and West Texas Intermediate. South Korean President Moon Jae-in met on Tuesday with hundreds of representatives of small and medium-sized businesses to lay out the government's plans to support their growth. According to the president, around $18 billion will be used to support around 1,600 firms this year, 10% up from last year's budget. He added that to improve smaller companies' performance, 4,000 smart factories will be built in 2019 alone. That number is forecast to climb to 30,000 by 2022. The government also plans to remove unnecessary regulations. Around 100 innovative financial technology firms are expected to get the green light with their new launches through the regulatory sandbox by the end of this year. The ongoing U.S.-China trade war escalated on Monday, with Beijing announcing it's raising tariffs on tens of billions of dollars worth of American imports. Lee Seung-jae has this report.
It was a move widely expected by all sides. China finally pulled the trigger on Monday, hiking tariffs on $60 billion in American goods as it smashed back against President Trump's latest tariff hike on $200 billion in Chinese goods. Beijing's Ministry of Finance said it was increasing tariffs on goods ranging from liquefied natural gas to frozen spinach and even everyday household goods like toothpaste, in what they called a response to U.S. unilateralism and trade protectionism. According to Beijing, nearly 2,500 items from the U.S. would be subject to tariffs of 25% from June 1st. They include LNG, agricultural items such as natural honey, compounds such as potassium sulfate, which is commonly used in fertilizer, and a number of manufactured goods such as LED light bulbs. On two other lists covering 1,078 and 974 items, tariffs will be raised to 20% to 10% respectively. The products on those lists include many household goods. A smaller list of items will not see an increase beyond the current level of 5%. Observers say that with the Chinese tariffs not taking effect for more than 2 weeks, it gives negotiators some time to strike a deal. China says U.S. policies are threatening the existence of the World Trade Organization, setting out a string of grievances in a WTO reform proposal, which was uploaded on the organization's website on Monday. While China did not name the U.S. directly, it referred to the block on the appointment of WTO appeals judges and national security tariffs on aluminum, steel, and automobiles, policies which are uniquely associated with the United States. It added a certain member of the WTO had unilaterally raised trade barriers and imposed import tariffs in an arbitrary way and without authorization from the organization. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, President Trump announced Monday that he'll meet face-to-face with Chinese President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit late next month. Here's Trump at the White House.
Maybe something will happen. We're going to be meeting, as you know, at the G20 in Japan, and that'll be, I think, probably a very fruitful meeting. But
Trump said he thinks China does want to strike a deal, even after claiming earlier this month that Beijing had reneged on key parts of the deal being negotiated. To help American farmers whose products are the target of China's tariffs, Trump said his administration is planning to provide about $15 billion in aid. China's announcement of new tariffs sent stocks around the world plunging. It was the biggest one-day decline on the Dow this year. Kim Yo-sun reports.
Shares prices plummeted around the world on Monday following China's retaliatory tariffs on U.S. imports worth $60 billion, signaling an escalation in the trade war between the world's two largest economies. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and S&P 500 closed 2.38 and 2.41% lower on Monday as investors dumped trade-sensitive shares. The Dow was even down more than 700 points or nearly 3% in the afternoon, with global aircraft manufacturer Boeing and equipment and machinery giant Caterpillar falling the most. Both companies get a significant amount of revenue from China and could lose heavily if the trade war lingers. Intel and Apple also dropped as 25% and 18% of their revenue comes from China, according to FactSet data. The plunge in Apple shares also came after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that consumers are now able to pursue an antitrust lawsuit against a company for exerting monopoly power through its App Store. The S&P 500 and tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite had their worst day of the year. Major European stock markets also slid, with the Pan-European Stock 600 index dropping 1.2%. At their close, Frankfurt DAX and Paris CAC 40 dropped 1.52 and 1.22% respectively. Kim Hyun-sun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Korea's main stock index, the Kospi, closed higher on Tuesday. It had opened sharply lower on U.S.-China trade, but eventually added 0.14% to end at just under 2082. The tech-heavy KOSDAQ was up 0.19% to 710. The Korean won has continued to weaken, ending the session at around 1,190 won against the greenback, a low not seen since January 2017. Now it's time to get, on this Tuesday, an in-depth look at markets around the world, including Korea. And for that, I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, Global Strategist at Kium Securities. Mr. Yu, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So a global headline, U.S. stocks got slammed overnight. The Nasdaq down almost 3.5%. The other two main indexes down well over 2%. Obviously, this is the U.S.-China trade issue. What are investors thinking out there?
Sure. As you said, the global market panic continued. The main reason for that is because after U.S. raising $200 billion worth of the goods tax tariff rate from 10% to 25%, China also retaliated, and they have announced that they will raise taxes on $60 billion worth of goods from U.S., including the agricultural products. So because of that retaliation, most of the people are concerned that the U.S.-China trade war might continue for a long period of time. No resolutions on site, and that was the main reason for a significant drop. However, though, the Chinese market today fell slightly less, only about 0.7% level, as well as the Korean market rebounded. The Kospi was up about 0.14% and KOSDAQ was up 0.19%, thanks to the institutional buying happening. Main reason for that is because the continuation of the talk between U.S. and China will occur, and also that Trump mentioned that they will meet on the G20 summit, and also a lot of the negotiation can be done before that summit meeting of G20. So I think people are having a little bit more hope than last night because of some of these announcements that made by Trump as well as from the China side. If you look at the China side, they also talk about the peaceful resolution can be happen, so they have not given up on the negotiation.
Interesting points. Well, if nothing changes, though, the Chinese tariffs will take effect on June 1st. And with stocks down so much already, though, is this the end of it? Or if not, when do you see things stabilizing?
Right. We estimated on the day when Trump tweeted on May 5th, Sunday, saying that he will raise the taxes, we estimated that the correction would be around 5% of the global market. In case it worsens, then it might go down by as much as 10%. So far, if you look at it, Chinese market fell over 10%. U.S. market also fell more than 5%. Global market in general, total fell over 5% level. So already most of the concern with the taxes with the 200 billion going up to 25% has already impacted. However, though, whether or not, the key question is that U.S. will impose another taxes on additional 300 billion worth of goods, which will affect negatively on inflation numbers for U.S. I don't think that this will actually happen, but people are still worried. And if this fight lingers around till the end of the year and the additional taxes are actually occurring, then we think that the global market might fall another 10% to the end of the year. However, though, we don't think that this will be actually happening. We think that by sometime end of the first half, we will see the signs that the negotiation will be made. We think we need three things for the market to go up again. Number one is any type of news of rate cut. Number two is any type of news regarding to the trade agreement between two countries. And then number three will be the economic leading indicator bottoming out. We will see some of these things will happen over the next couple of months. And if that's the case, the correction should be handled, and then the market will start to go up again in the future.
Got it. Well, bringing things back home here, the Bank of Korea has released some new figures on export prices. The index for April up 0.5% from the month before, the third monthly rise in a row. On the other hand, though, semiconductor prices, one of the main exports, are still falling. What's going on there?
Right. As you see that the export price index are rising because the oil price has been going up in the last several months from as low as below $50 level to now about over $60, $61 level. The petrochemical product prices goes up with the oil price rise, and the Korea's export total, out of the total, about 20% is related to petrochemical products. So that the price going up does have a positive impact on the export price index. However, though, the DRAM prices continue to fall because of the worries of China demand with the U.S.-China trade war possibilities, and also the concern about the handset-related demand being weak going into the future. However, though, most likely that export prices in general will go up because DRAM price falling should stabilize sometime in the second half of this year, because we think that data center demand and also AI-related demand will pick up significantly in the second half. So the price should stabilize gradually throughout this quarter. And then starting next quarter, which is the third quarter, we think the price should go up slightly. Also, Samsung is planning to invest 133 trillion won worth of non-memory semiconductor business. So we think that the price related to this, especially the semiconductor machinery prices, to go up in the future. So all in all, we think that the export prices should be fairly stable in the future, and particularly in the second half if there might be some recoveries.
All right. Well, Mr. Yu, that's where we'll have to leave it today. Thanks so much for your insights, as always.
Thank you very much.
Now, as we just heard, South Korea's export prices rose for a third straight month in April. The Bank of Korea says the export price index came to 83.48, up 0.5% from March. Exports of electronics fetched lower prices, but overall export prices were lifted by petroleum products. The central bank said import prices went up 1.5%, mainly on higher prices of global oil and raw materials and a weaker won. South Korea's benchmark Dubai crude rose 6% on month, recording an average in April of around $71 a barrel. The Korea Development Institute says the local economy is still struggling. It notes that exports are down, as is investment. Yoon Jung-min reports.
South Korea's state-run think tank has, for the second month in a row, described the country's economy as stagnant. In its economic trends report for May, the Korea Development Institute said the Korean economy has recently seen a slowdown in investment and exports, but some concerns have eased regarding consumption. Exports dipped 2% on-year in April. The decline was smaller than it was in March thanks to an increase in the number of workdays, but the overall trend remained sluggish as the average daily exports volume continued to fall. In other data released by Statistics Korea on the same day, exports fell 6.4% in the first 10 days of May on-year, also due to a decrease in semiconductors. Investment for March also continued to decline due mainly to the struggling semiconductor market. Retail sales growth in March, on the other hand, reached 2.4%, higher than the average growth from January to February. Services production also grew 0.6% on-year, though the figure is lower than the average growth of 1% during the previous 2 months. On the other hand, mining and manufacturing production dipped 2.8% due to weaker semiconductors and automobile sectors. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The chairman of one of South Korea's biggest conglomerates, Lotte Group, met with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House on Monday. They apparently talked investment. Cha Sang-mi has this report.
Lotte Group Chairman Shin met with U.S. President Donald Trump in the Oval Office on Monday local time, making him the first head of a South Korean conglomerate to have the honor since Trump took office in the early 2017. Asked what the two discussed at the meeting, Shin revealed they talked about various subjects, but said he could not elaborate. President Trump tweeted soon after the South Korean billionaire left the White House, touting Lotte Group's investment of $3.1 billion into the state of Louisiana. Trump said the investment will create thousands of American jobs, adding South Korea is a great partner that knows the U.S. economy is running stronger than ever. The visit comes as Shin was in the U.S. to attend last week's completion ceremony of Lotte Chemical's ethylene plant in Lake Charles, Louisiana. The new plant is the largest ever facility in the sector and can produce up to 1 million tons of ethylene a year. Lotte Chemical holds an 88% stake in the project, with its American partner, Westlake Chemical, owning the rest. Shin was accompanied by South Korea's ambassador to the United States, Cho Yoon-jae, and senior Lotte Group representatives. Matthew Pottinger, a senior White House official for Asia, was also at the meeting. 차상미, Arirang News.
In other news, several South Korean films have been invited to this year's prestigious Cannes International Film Festival in France, which starts on Tuesday. The Korean film industry is apparently attracting more foreign distributors as well. Lee Min-sun reports.
The 2019 Cannes Film Festival has invited some new South Korean films to join the glitz and glamour in the south of France. They include Parasite, directed by Bong Joon-ho, and Lee Won-tae's The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil. These films are generating a lot of buzz in the movie world, especially with the recent pre-sale record set by The Gangster, the Cop, the Devil. It has proved so popular that Sylvester Stallone's Balboa Productions has bought the rights to remake the film. Lee Won-tae's film attracted buyers with 3-minute-long promotion clips at the American film market last year, and a staggering 104 countries decided to buy and premiere the film in their country's cinemas. The original movie stars popular Korean actor Ma Dong-seok. Ma will also play the leading role in the Hollywood remake.
I think the concept of the film, a gangster cooperating with a police officer to catch a murderer, is really captivating to foreign buyers. Also, having actor Ma Dong-seok as one of the leading roles contributed to the appeal of the film. There it is, the three components of a successful movie: a trustworthy production, a well-known actor, and a hooking concept.
Pre-sales of Korean films have been increasing since the 2010s through international film markets at film festivals dotted around the world. A pre-sale in the movie industry is signing a deal to screen a film before production is complete. Recently, a growing number of Korean films have been sold to an increasing number of foreign countries. Train to Busan was sold to 156 countries, and along with the gods, the two worlds, and along with the gods, the last 49 days to 107 countries.
Korean movies started to command attention at international events and film festivals with film directors like Bong Joon-ho, Park Chan-wook, and Kim Ji-woon. That's when Korean films started to turn heads, changing the way Korean movies are viewed locally and globally. With the Korean wave spreading across the globe, industry watchers say the ongoing popularity of Korean films around the world will cement South Korea's status as a country that produces reliable and entertaining films. However, they emphasize the importance of creating more unique and eye-catching content to ensure South Korea hangs on its prized position. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
The new Apple TV app launched Monday in more than 100 countries. It enables the use of a single application to watch several popular TV channels, plus content from iTunes, on iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, and Samsung Smart TVs. Those channels include HBO and Showtime, with more to be added over time. Apple also plans to offer its own original shows, including ones from Oprah Winfrey and Steven Spielberg. The service can also be used on all 2019 model Samsung Smart TVs and select 2018 models with a firmware update. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thanks for being with us. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.